the scars remind me to appreciate the days I don't have to.
Mary Tyler Moore was once fired from a Broadway production by Neil Simon because he goes, you turned it into, you added a but. Take the butt out of there. He goes, what's the fucking difference? It makes it different. It's like da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, joke. Da-da-da. If you add a but, it's a da-da-da-da-da. It's different.
Yeah.
He goes, comedy is rhythm. And anyway, but that's, so Quentin writes that way, especially that, if you think about, he's talking about the diner scene where he talked about like a version, and it's this banter. So Tierney, is like suddenly improvising, and
right?
And Quinn's like, "Don't fucking do that! Read the fucking word." And he basically fired him. He's like saying, "And I fired my actor, and I shot a whole week with. I fired him on 4 o'clock on a Friday after shooting all fucking week. I fired him. What the fuck am I gonna do?" And I realize I can't do this. They'll take the money back, whatever. And I go back and I apologize, and we make up and we have drinks, and then Madsen says, "I really respect you did that." That's
did he rehired him
or did he rehired him?
Oh yeah.
So it's like that's his Michael story. The Michael story. I'm like, that's how he summed up his,
Michael Madsen.
But I mean, and he's known him how many movies they did together. He sums them up in that story. So it just makes you wonder, like, fuck, know who's eulogizing you, because it's like, you could do this whole thing and be like,
When you go to like a eulogy, that's not like, I think I went to Bill Paxton's, and that is like just people standing around telling stories, correct? Or
yeah.
They get up, and how many people were at that?
In the audience, probably it had to be like at least 100.
Yeah.
More. Was that the theater there up in Los Feliz, the one he owns?
Quentin owns.
Yeah.
He owns two now, I understand.
Right, not the first one, the second one. I can't think of the name now.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's
Vista. The
right,
Vista.
Yeah.
So, and they had on the marquee, but the thing is, it's crazy because so many people came up and told these it's like, here's what I did, and then Michael was there. And then somebody put together a reel.
Okay. Of his movies.
Yeah, but what they did, they put together the trailers of the major movies he worked on. I'm like so literally so you had the Reservoir Dog trailer. You have a James Bond movie trailer, but literally he's in the trailer for like maybe 3 seconds.
Yes.
So I'm like, why the fuck are we watching the trailers of these movies and not the scenes that he did? I mean, someone should have cut the scenes together.
Of course.
Not the trailers. I don't know who's in charge of that, but so if we, I don't want to out somebody and not doing a kind of a half-assed job, but I mean, think of it. The guy dies. I mean, at least you want to have his work.
Yeah. I would think that you'd want a couple of his best scenes from his best movies, and like 2-3 minutes each. Do 10 minutes worth of.
There's literally 5 seconds here, 3 seconds there, and then one of them is just his name in the credits. I'm like, what's going on here? There's War Games. He was in War Games for like 8 seconds, right? And it shows him. I'm like, why is that? It's anyway. So whoever did this, it's just kind of it's like this, almost like this view of like, okay, you live this whole life, you do all this stuff, you meet people, you work in the business, you think you touch people, and then when you're gone, somebody may get it wrong, and that's it. And it's like, I remember when I came out of the bathroom, I was constipated. I couldn't. It took me a while to let one go. And I walk out, and he goes, "Hey man, you took a long time." And that's how I met Michael Madsen. I'm like, that shouldn't be about that. But it's.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of me. I was watching not a documentary, just an interview with Woody Allen, who's kind of. Well, you've kind of forgotten about Woody Allen, but he's still, man, he's like 92, 93, just bright, just as, smart as ever. And they asked him something about his legacy, and he's like, I don't give a fuck about my legacy. I'll be dead. I don't give a fuck. I'll be dead. Why would I care about what people say about me when I'm dead?
Oh my God. That used to be a New York thing. Every fall, he was shooting somewhere in Manhattan. And every movie he did, Manhattan was a character in the movie. It was always about that.
Yeah.
And it was, and I used to look forward. Okay, what's Woody doing now? What movie are they doing now? And like those early ones were amazing. Hannah and the Sisters, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Annie Hall, Manhattan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Manhattan.
Yeah. And then, of course, after all the stuff came out about, his stepdaughter, they got a little weird, and then suddenly you started looking at his movie in a different light. Oh, my God, that's what he meant by that. Anyway.
What was the one, Jim, I think I've talked to you about this before, where... Broadway Danny Rose. Broadway.
Yeah. So
that to me is like he just fucking kills it.
So that's amazing. I have it. Well, are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, we are. Oh no. Okay. Okay.
No, you didn't.
So there's things like there's a story about who they wanted for Broadway Danny Rose, and they brought him in to meet Woody. And I won't say who, but
come on, say
no,
it.
I can't.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
No, okay. All right.
No, but actually,
to play Broadway?
The play the role that Jeff Daniels wound up playing. There was somebody else they really wanted, and they brought him in.
Okay.
And he wasn't really audience ready. He was kind of, it's kind of like, think about that scene in Apocalypse Now where they find Martin Sheen and they throw him in the shower and he's all like, So they kind of found this actor kind of like in maybe that kind of shape. And, and they decided to bring him down anyway, and which probably was a bad idea. And then Woody, he did something kind of mean, at least how it sounded kind of mean. He saw how the actor was, and rather than just say, "Hey, listen, why don't you go home?" and he actually put him on film and had him try to read stuff so he could like.
Oh, he was that fucked up, this guy?
More or less, yeah. That's anyway.
Yeah.
So then that became Jeff Daniels' thing, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my favorite.
Yeah.
And he had all his acts, and he had the drunk guy who was a big act, and but he had like the one-legged juggler. And
right. No, that was yeah.
And what was his wife's name? I thought that was one of his.
Oh God, no.
Jim?
Mia Farrow?
Yeah, Mia Farrow.
Mia Farrow, yeah.
Yeah, she's in that movie.
Think about Mia Farrow. Mia Farrow was married to Frank Sinatra for like a second.
Yeah.
And then
Polanski,
and then Woody Allen. So if you ask her, so what's your type? It should be more like, what's not your type? I mean, because you go from a guy like Sinatra.
Successful directors, that's my type.
Successful directors to Sinatra to like Woody Allen. I mean, that's about as the spectrum as you can get, right?
Didn't he? You'd probably know this better than anybody, but didn't he leave her because she was shooting?
Sinatra
Rosemary's daughter, and it kept running over and over.
So he was in Italy doing what was that? The World War II movie, Von Ryan's Express. He was shooting Von Ryan's Express, and he tells her, "Listen, I don't want you doing this, bullshit devil movie with this director. I don't like that guy. I want you to come to Italy with me. We're gonna put you in this movie with me. You're gonna be with my wife." She goes, "No, this is a big movie for me. This could be big for my career."
Yes.
And he says, "If you don't quit that movie, I'm gonna divorce you." So basically, he had, I think, someone serve her divorce papers on set.
On the set, yeah.
But then there was another sequela to that. So Von Ryan's Express was supposed to be like the first of many. Okay, because they escaped from the prison camp, and the last scene, if you remember, is the train, going
into the tunnel.
Into the tunnel, right, to get away. And so somewhere on that set, when they were getting ready to shoot, whatever scenes they were, somebody says to her, "Hey, too bad about Mia, but she was just a kid, some kind of crack." And he says, so Frank got pissed. He goes, basically, "Fuck you. Who do you think you are? You know what? Fuck this picture scene. Write me out. I want you to kill me off in this pitch. I'm not doing any more pitches for you." Because they were going to do like 3, like Von Ryan.
Because somebody made a comment about
They made a comment about how much younger Mia was to him and how, so because that was supposed to be like an opener for like a series of movies, Von Ryan's Heroes, like coming back.
007, that one of those things.
Yeah, like Dirty Dozen or something.
Exactly. And so basically, he said, "No, you kill me off." So that last scene where he's running for the train, they shot it so he gets shot by the Germans as opposed to jumping on a train and getting away, leaving a room for a sequel. So he told him, "Kill me off now. I'm not working for you ever again." Because
I never would have guessed that was kind of spur of the moment ending. I always thought that's the way the movie was supposed to end.
That's called good directing. It's okay. Well,
we directed it, Jim.
We have to kill him off. So let's make it a nice scene and have that priest, the guy, do the blessing thing at the end. Disappear into the tunnel.
Have him almost get to the train. He's so close.
Almost get to the train.
He's reaching up. You see the two hands coming together.
Exactly. And there's some German soldier with this endless clip. They just the bullets just never seem to run out in all those World War II movies.
No, they never change clips.
They never change clips. Exactly. It's like, wow.
So you were. When you walked in, I said, "Were you traveling?" So, you were, and
I was. So I was in Greece twice. Okay, right. And I was in Mexico.
And why Greece? Because of your movie. You have okay.
So I was in Greece because the
what's the name of the movie?
So what they did, the Sinatra movie I did, Frank and Ava, a few years ago.
Yeah.
These Greek guys said, it's funny. I was in Greece 2 years ago doing some action movie with some guy named Antimos, and we're doing this.
Oh, Antimos! I think I've lost a couple of roles to him. Anyway,
so we're doing this this guerrilla style action movie all over the streets of Athens, and I meet this guy named Yorgos Papadrakos, and he watches my movie on Amazon, the Sinatra movie, and through a translator is like, Yorgos says he likes your movie very much, but it needs one more thing. I go, what's that? A better story. I'm like,
oh, just that, huh? God, how come nobody said
I'm like, one more thing, but like it's like, hey, I love the turkey dinner. It just needs one more thing, a turkey. So I'm like, well, he goes, no, but Yorgos can fix this for you. Very easy to fix. I go, well, actually the movie's done. It's on Amazon. I'm done spending money. No, my Yorgos has idea for you. You will have Sinatra as old man and have a biographer interview him. This is the way to fix the movie. So I'm like, well, you know what? If you're ever in LA, look me up. We'll talk about it. I kind of blew it off as one of those things. And the year goes by, and during this time, I got sick from COVID, and I had pneumonia, and then I had long COVID, and I was like kind of weak.
Goodness.
I had gained like 30, 40 pounds. I was looking old. I was looking crap. And this guy shows up in LA, with his camera crew, and he says, I'm here to shoot. I wrote 15 pages. We get the American actor to interview you, and we do this scene. And I'm like, and at the time, I'm friends with Michael Madsen, and I go, hey, Michael, you want to do this thing? It's one day. I'm Sinatra. I'm old.
He's the interviewer?
And he's the biographer. Yeah. Yeah, Rico, I could do that for you. Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah. And so literally we use this house. And here's where it gets kind of weird. I mean, it's like with the kismet of it all. So this patient of mine, I was friends with him and his family and all that, and he had just passed away, and he owned a house.
Good doctor in there, bro.
There you go. He lived to be 93, by the way, but that's okay. I should throw that in there, Exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Anyway, so he owned a house that he had bought from Sinatra decades ago, right? And it was up there in Carrollwood, and because he had just passed away, his daughter was like breaking down the house. So here's this mansion up in the hills, and there's this big fireplace, and she already took like the paintings off the wall. So there's like just a bare hook and wire above the fireplace.
She, meaning his wife?
His daughter.
His daughter.
Yeah.
Nancy?
No, I'm talking about my patient's daughter.
Oh, your patient. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so here's this house that Sinatra used to own that this guy lived in, and now he passes away, and now the daughter's breaking down the house to maybe put it up for sale or whatever. And she said, you could use this house because Sinatra used to live here, 25 years ago.
Wow.
And so there's this house, there's this room, there's this coffee table that belonged to Sinatra, and it had a big picture of Camel cigarettes on it. It was like a Camel cigarettes coffee table. They go, of course it's going to have a Camel cigarettes coffee table. And so there's me in the smoking jacket, kind of heavy, bloated, crappy looking. They gray up the hair even more. So I look like I've aged up and fattened up for the role, but this is just me being sick. And then Michael shows up, in this outfit, and
in a normal Michael Madsen
normal
outfit?
Michael Madsen outfit. You know,
one of those bright shirts with
correct. And so I actually improvised when he walked in with this outfit. You know, there's a scene where I say to my assistant, "Hey, where's that bag for? It looks like a rock star."
Yeah.
You know, with the glitter and the thing. And what he's doing, he's interviewing me. So he's asking me questions, you know, and this became this thing where he would interview me. We would cut back, so the movie became flashback.
Yeah,
and then there's scenes
that's kind of cool.
It was totally cool. And then there's scenes where I'm walking around the pool like really slow with the nurse helping me, and he's asking me more questions. But then there were moments. I mean, I gave Michael like a notebook. I said, "Listen, all the questions are here. Or if you get in trouble, go to your pad. It's right in front of you, you know." And there's a moment where like he asked a question, I answered, and then he just kind of stops. He's staring.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, and the camera's rolling. So I just keep talking. I keep talking, and you know. And then after cut, he's like, "Oh man, I thought I was talking to Frank, Rico. I freaked out." I'm like, "Jesus, where did Rico go? Like you freaked me out, man." I was like, I thought I was talking to Frank. I was looking at you, and you looked old, and you're smoking, and I was like, I didn't know what to do, man. I thought Frank was in front of me. I got nervous. I'm like, great. Well, next time that happens, read the notebook. You know?
Yeah.
You know, and Jennifer was there. She played a nurse because she came to check my blood pressure and all that. And I improvised there. Like I would sit there, I'm laying down, I'm sleeping in my chair.
You know, Rico. You know, now that we shoot, everything's digital. That like, you know, at that moment, and it's just like something that like you forget. I forget sometimes when you're acting. It's just like, okay, because it's just digital. Michael, all right, look at your page. Let's go back a line, pick up that line, and let's go.
And
they
could
cut.
You know,
but you know, because it used to be film was you didn't have time to waste like that, and there wasn't a lot of. I remember the first time, I think it was on the Michael Mann movie, the De Niro. I remember the first time the De Niro, I heard them say, pick, you know, like something was like. You know, background of them shooting the movie, and it was like, pick it up from so-and-so. And I thought to myself, like, oh, De Niro? You say that fucking to De Niro? Pick it up at, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We did Heat. You talking about Heat.
What's that?
Heat. He did Heat. Michael Mann did Heat with him.
Heat. What did I say?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. They keep talking about another Heat, but I don't.
Heat 2. Yeah, I know. And they're going to cast the younger versions of who they were, like who's going to be the young Val Kilmer, the young De Niro, the young Pacino. I think it's Adam Driver's going to be in this.
Oh boy. Yeah, I do think that. Yeah.
I saw that.
Isn't it a Netflix thing?
It's a Netflix thing. See, I don't know. I was getting worried.
Well, it's a little bit like Tarantino selling Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sequel to Netflix.
Correct.
For David Fincher to do with Brad Pitt.
Correct. I mean, Heat was already like amazing. I mean, as is.
Oh yeah.
And it had all those like, and then the question about Heat, did they really meet at Kate Mandolini's? Were they really in the same scene at the same time? Because I heard the story that they weren't. That they shot Al scenes, they shot De Niro scenes. And they kind of cut back and forth. They weren't there at the same time to shoot that scene. And there's no two shot of them.
There isn't. No, if you really look at the scene carefully, you never see a two shot of them.
You know, Jim and I have always had, not always, it hasn't been a big deal, but every once in a while, Adam Driver's name comes up, and I'm like, what? Like, where did he come from? And like, what? You know, I can name a lot of movies that he was in that just the movies didn't work. Not that he, you know, was. But I did see something recently, Jim, that he was in, that it was actually a good story, and it was basically about Abu Ghraib and about
really?
You know, the tortures that went on at Abu Ghraib, and there was like one guy who stayed at like, you know, the bottom of the CIA in the basement who, you know, kept bringing it up and up and up, and I watched it, and it was good. It was very
Gosh, I wonder
good,
what the movie is. I mean, the only movie I can think of with any Abu Ghraib references is Card Counter, the Paul Schrader movie.
Oh my God! Paul Schrader. Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I mean, Adam Driver. He was the villain in the Star Wars whatever. Yeah,
that's where he came from. That's where he blew up.
Right.
Yeah.
He played. What was
Kylo Ren? He's the bad guy in the latest.
Yes.
Well,
Star
what was
Wars
the
movies.
one that he did with Matt Damon, which was not
The Last Duel.
The Last Duel.
The Last Duel, yeah. And what else is he?
Oh, he was in a Ridley Scott movie.
I know Ridley Scott loves him.
In
He's
the
in
Coppola
more
movie, Megalopolis. He was
well,
in.
okay. That's what I'm saying. I'm just not. I'm quite trying to figure out like how he got to be like
family
in the top 3 or 4 people that they go to.
Yeah.
No, I remember some stuff before that, but the Star Wars, that didn't work for me. He didn't. I mean, he's supposed to be this all-powerful villain, and he looked like this boy trying to be bad. I mean, this is the most powerful, evil person in the universe. I mean, I just didn't get it. I mean, I tried to play with it with Darth Snow, like messing with him, but like Darth Vader was like badass. Darth Vader was like this evil guy, you know. And now it's like, I don't know. It just didn't. I mean,
are they making another Star Wars?
I mean, they're always doing other Star Wars movies. I think they have one coming out that's about kind of the fighter pilots. It's a movie because they do mostly shows now on Disney.
But they're not. Are they making a movie?
I'm sure they're going to make another one. I think they made one.
Is John Favreau involved in?
I don't know.
That
I'd have to
movie
look into it. But I did just want to say that I looked up the Heat 2, and it looks like it's Christian Bale and DiCaprio.
Wow.
Are going to be there. Christian Bale is like eyeing Bale and DiCaprio.
And Michael Mann's directing it, right?
Yeah.
So Leo and Christian, that's going to be that could be amazing.
Have they not worked together before?
I know that Leo never worked with Michael Mann before, and Leo's always wanted to work with Michael Mann.
Yeah.
Like Michael Mann's one of those like bucket list people you want to work with.
Yeah.
Because he's like this amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that could be pretty cool actually.
Is that set for like shooting? Is it like
no? I don't think Bale's even officially signed on. They're just saying he's eyeing the role. Christian Bale circling role in Michael Mann's Heat 2.
That's usually a pretty good. I noticed Christian Bale recently along with Nick Cage, and they're playing the owner of the NFL and the owner of the Raiders. That guy, you remember the guy? Who's the guy who used to
Davis?
Davis.
Al Davis.
Al Davis, and he was always fighting with somebody who was the commissioner.
Oh yeah,
Rozelle.
Yes, Pete Rozelle.
I'm not sure if it's Pete Rozelle that he's playing because I know that
Art Rooney.
Cage has got on a big stomach. He's like anyway. That's
Madden.
Oh, the coach, you mean? Madden. Yeah, Madden was the coach. Yeah.
So that's something I've seen where Nicolas Cage just looks like, wow, he looks a lot like Madden, man. He's
really wow.
Yeah.
No, but Madden was a legend, and the thing is, Madden didn't like to fly, So Madden had to
take his bus.
He had an RV.
Took his bus everywhere.
Exactly.
When he was covering football games.
Yeah, but
he
that
would travel around the country in his RV.
Yeah.
Decked out RV.
The Raiders were great. I mean, they're still. I mean,
the Raiders are like 5-3 or 6-3 right now. Right? Raiders have had a very good. What?
No. Okay. They're bad this season. Okay, he says.
I was fixing the camera. The Raiders are bad this season.
Oh, not Raiders. Bears. I'm thinking of the Bears.
Oh, Bears. Yeah, Bears are 7-3.
7-3. The Bears are a team I used to like up until the time that. Everybody in the world fell in love with him with the refrigerator, Super Bowl shot. I was a Bears fan for like 40 years, and they were always terrible. And then I went off to shoot aliens, and then I came back, and the whole world had fallen in love with my Bears. The Bears. Then I turned into a Raiders fan, and I was a Raiders fan until the Tuck rule.
Oh, yeah, the Tuck rule.
Fucking Tuck rule. And then that one just kind of took me out of the NFL, where I'm just like, you know what, I can't. Something's not right, this Tuck rule thing.
But for a while, the Raiders kind of see my exposure to football growing up was that my dad bet on football, and it was like, and he would bet only on the games he could watch on TV.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So even though I would try to help him win, and I look at the pay, go, Dad, there's a game. New Orleans is playing the Saints. He goes, New Orleans is playing the Rams. He goes, well, I can't watch that game. So I want to bet them. So he only bet on Giant games and Jet games, and whoever was the other game they would show, like CBS and NBC.
Yeah.
So NBC would show the Jets. and CBS would show an NFC game, and then at 4:00, CBS would show the Giants, and NBC would show an AFC game. So only 4 games that he would bet on, and then Monday Night Football he would bet on. So 5 games a week he'd bet, and that's my exposure to watching football.
Yes.
And then the Super Bowls were like the big bets. So I remember Super Bowl Sunday praying in church, Our Father who art in heaven, let the Steelers win by 7. And that was the Super Bowl, Steelers against Vikings, and they did win by 7. They covered, and it was like,
oh my goodness,
they won like 13-3 or something like 6 or something like that.
Yeah,
the steel curtain. But that I used to literally sit there and pray for teams to cover the spread, because this way we could pay rent and I could have new shoes or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the Raiders was interesting. I used to think that the Raiders used to play for their fans and for their bettors, because you could look this up. There was an AFC championship
You're probably
game.
right about that.
There was an AFC championship game where Raiders were playing Steelers, and they were losing 16-7, fourth quarter, under 2 minutes, and the Raiders marched down the field, and they're on like the Steelers 30-40 yard line. There's like a minute, 2 minutes, like a minute 50, under 2 minutes left, and they kick a field goal to make it 16-10. I'm like, why wouldn't they go for the touchdown first? That's hard to get. And then the onside kick, you make a field goal to win, right? They kicked the field goal right away and then went for the onside kick. Well, it turns out the Raiders were 6.5-point underdogs.
Uh-huh.
So kicking the field goal made their bettors win, making it 16-10.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, you know what?
Was it fourth down?
No. They decided to kick the field goal. Like they got down to the 40 and they kicked the field goal like on first down. And they went back for the onside
okay, that's
kick.
what I'm asking. It was first down.
And
they kicked. Yeah.
And I say why would they do that? And they go, you know what? They're taking care of their bettors. They got to be because
they're covering the spread.
I've heard almost all my life people that, and I'm not talking about you here in this moment. I'm sure that happened, and for whatever reason. But the idea of trying to fix basketball is different. But the idea of trying to fix football games, I just think that he could have missed a field goal. I mean, it's not like it's just a 40-yard field goal. He could have missed a field goal, And the idea that I've heard people that are just like, the NFL is just so there's just no doubt that there's this going on, that going on. And I just find it implausible that you could actually fix.
That's hard. That's hard.
Remember when they made the big deal about the deflated football?
Oh, Brady,
thing? Brady, deflated football. And then they went around and they went out to every team, and they checked their footballs, and the footballs were everyone was different. There was no standard thing, and that thing just went, and then that just went away.
Can you imagine that job description? Wanted people to go around checking balls.
Ball checker.
Ball checker. I'm here to check your balls. That's right. There you go.
Well, you're a doctor. You must have done that once or twice before.
Early in med school. Then that's why we became
not so much.
That's why we became a cardiologist. So we have to be checking below the waist anymore. But no.
Rico. I asked Rico if I could take a certain drug, and he said, "Yeah. I think you'd take that, Michael. But I want you to get a."
Stress test first.
No. What do you call it? When they stick their finger up.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Prostate.
A prostate check.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. And I looked at him, and he's like, well, I don't know. Not me.
Not me. No, not by me.
I don't do that.
Not by the fickle finger of fate, as the Smothers Brothers once said. No, not that. But think about it. I mean,
I know you're a cardiologist, but it was just like.
But
you were so just shocked that I would what do I know? I'm just thinking.
Don't get excited. These fingers aren't coming near you. No. No, but actually,
where's the glove?
Exactly. But you got to get nervous for the guy who does the exam. Like, wait a minute, your hands were on the wall. Wait, hold on. No. But it's a very old joke. But anyway, but just to enlighten people, the digital prostate exam I think is worthless, because basically it's someone saying, it feels kind of small. Well, a little
digital
big.
meaning sticking their finger up there.
Exactly.
When I did that, because you asked me to, and I went to do it, and that's all he said to me was, you got a very small prostate. I'm like,
So that's okay. If they find it small, it's okay. But the minute you see it's big or enlarged, then
hardened or something,
then you want an ultrasound. You want something more definitive to kind of see something. And I think if you're over 50, definitely if you're over 60, I think getting the way I tell people, the way women get pap smears and things and mammograms, I think men should get some kind of imaging of their prostate. I mean, because
what about the PSA?
So PSA
levels?
PSA is good as a screening, but the thing is, you also have to respect the changes in PSA. And I know somewhere out there, some urologists will say, well, it doesn't matter. But it's true, because I could tell you.
What's PSA?
So prostate-specific antigen is something that comes from, it's a protein that comes from the prostate. And if you have prostate cancer or prostate enlargement or prostatitis or any inflammation, it's going to elevate, it's going to increase.
Yeah, my father had prostate cancer, and it's a figure that you get from a blood test.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
if it's above a certain level, I think
when I do a blood test with you, that's part of
we
your
check
thing.
that.
Right?
I always check that. And the controversial thing is that somewhere along the line, somebody who's medical economics, whatever, they say, well, it's not worth checking PSAs past a certain age unless you expect someone's life expectancy to be more than 10 years, or unless you expect, and the thing is, like, I don't know. I check anyway.
Yeah.
Because who am I to qualify? Well, you're allowed to have prostate cancer. No, you know what? How about you have it and decide what you want to do about it?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've diagnosed prostate cancer in patients who come to me for a heart checkup, and they say, by the way, I checked the PSA, it's elevated. Or, by the way, I saw your PSA a year ago was one, which is considered normal, and today it's 1.8. Now it's still normal, but you went up by 80%. So I would go check it out, and boom, it turns out to be prostate cancer.
Is prostate cancer something that, like, a lot? And when I say a lot, you could give me a percentage of men that as they get older, they just usually get it. Like, you just kind of that's just part of life. You don't die from it, but
you die with it. So I've heard
you can die from it.
Well,
you can die from it.
Yes,
you
can.
Yeah,
correct.
you can.
No, you can. It can metastasize.
Yes,
of
course.
And you could die.
I think Frank
painfully.
Zappa died of it
Correct.
at a relatively early
Correct.
age.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. You could have young people with prostate cancer. It's very aggressive. Goes to the bone.
Yeah, metastasizes. It does.
But am I wrong that, like, guys in their 70s and 80s, you look like you might have a little prostate cancer here, but there's like 9 other things more wrong than that?
You're going to die of something else before that.
So I remember learning a long time ago that if you took the prostates out of 90-year-old people after they died, or 92-year-olds, you would find some kind of cancer in most of them.
Uh-huh.
So that the older you lived, the more likely you're going to have some transformation, some cancer cells. So they say that. But then, to me, I don't think that precludes you from checking, because I guess the logic was, well, if you're checking all the time and you're suddenly doing a bunch of biopsies, a bunch of tests, and because the way they used to check once upon a time is that if your PSA was high, and they would do a biopsy. And they literally biopsy different regions of the prostate. So you got a guy with some
tool with a pair of pliers up there pulling
up
pieces.
There.
Exactly.
And
more or less.
And basically they have to sample 9 different regions, I think, around So, but now you could do an MRI. You could do more targeted. So it's not. So actually, you can get a better way to look and classify things. So I think and the other thing is out there, and I'm gonna call them out on this. There's places out there that offer a scan, okay, and there's a scan out there called the Prenovo scan, and they'll probably get mad at me now. Oh my God! And if you read the report, okay, there's a couple of doctors out there that make a lot of money, being their concierge doctors, and have a Prenovo scan in their basement, and they're like basically like turning the what do you call the cash register, and just like getting people scans. When you get the report, the first page looks like it was written by a lawyer, saying this scan does not replace mammogram. It doesn't replace mammograms. It doesn't replace colonoscopy. And also, the sensitivity of this test decreases below 1 centimeter. So any lesion less than a centimeter cannot be detected by the scan, and we recommend. So there's a whole disclaimer on how the scan doesn't work.
Yes.
So why would you do a scan where the results tells you, okay, it's not good for this?
Don't count on
they're
this.
they're just covering themselves.
Correct. And I've had people, at least 5 of them, who've had pre-novo scans annually, and then I see them for the first time, and I find prostate cancer, lung cancer. And they say, hey, but doc, I've been getting these scans every year. And then you go back and look at the actual film, you see something, but it's less than a centimeter, so they can't officially call it. So it's kind of like saying, hey, this picture was taken with a BlackBerry, not the iPhone 17, so we don't have the same resolution, so we can't call it. But the thing is, why give somebody the false sense of security that, hey, we saw nothing that we can call cancer, when maybe you could have had something you can call cancer?
You don't want to do that.
And that's the problem with these general body scans, because
when you talk about a body scan, is that like a body that goes into one of the things?
Well, what it is, it's a low level MRI.
Okay.
It doesn't have the same resolution.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you did high res MRI, you'd be in the scanner for quite a while. You'd freak out. You know, be like hearing the bell goes bing bong. It's a crazy
Exorcist.
experience. Yeah, exactly. So they do a low level scan so they could quickly run you through the thing, and they charge you $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. I've seen different prices, and then no, do a total body scan and know what you got. But the thing is, sure, if you find the cancer, that's great. But the truth is, it's a test is only as good as when it tells you that you don't have something. That's how you tell if a test is good. What's its ability to predict that you don't have something? Finding something is one thing, but what's the confidence that the test is a normal test means normal, a negative test means negative? That's a true judge of a test that you do, and that's the problem with a scan like that. Its ability to detect normal is not as good. And then so you telling somebody that they have a normal scan, there may be a 20% chance that it's not normal. It just can't pick it up. It's not good enough to pick it up. And that's the problem with that. There's a whole thing about statistics and Bayesian theory and why you do a test. And when we do tests, there's a concept called predictive value and pre-test likelihood. So therefore, if I look for heart disease all the time, I'm a cardiologist, so I'm looking for coronary disease. So when somebody comes in with chest pain and shortness of breath, okay, I have to ask questions to say, okay, what is the pre-test likelihood that this person has significant coronary disease? And that'll tell me what test I do next, okay? Because the test could be an EKG, a stress test, a nuclear stress test, or an angiogram, where you just go in and look at the arteries, right? And each test is more sensitive. It has an ability to pick up what's going on. So if you come in and you're a 30-year-old guy that had chest pain, because you're up all night and you were taking Adderall so you could study for the exam, and now you have chest pain, your pretest likelihood is going to be kind of low, so I'm not going to do an angiogram. I may just do an EKG and look at you and all that. Now, if you're a 65-year-old guy who smokes, has diabetes, has high cholesterol, and you coming in with chest pain, I'm not going to believe a normal EKG. I may go right to the angiogram because this guy has a high pretest likelihood of having disease, which means that whatever test I do has to be good enough to kind of to detect the disease with the high pretest likelihood. So that's why you got to go to a more sensitive test. So a test like these body scans, their sensitivity isn't good. Their ability to pick up a negative, to tell if something's negative, is not that good. And that's the key of a test. So if you do a test and you say, okay, you're fine, you're not going to have a heart attack. If you do an angiogram and the vessel's open, we're done, okay? So with these Prenovo scans, you don't get that same assurance that you're good.
Prenovo is the name of the company?
Well, it's called Prenovo. I think that's the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'll probably get mad at me. Oh, you can't say
that. I get emails for that occasionally, promoting it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've never opted for it.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, here's the legal disclaimer. There's probably a utility for the technology, but I think the utility of it is being over maybe exaggerated by the people who promote it and use it, and so maybe when used properly, it has a place. But unfortunately, a lot of people will take advantage of the fact that they oversell it because why? Because they're selling, they get cash. That's why. So. And the reason why they get cash, because if Medicare had to pay for this, they would actually review the utilization, and they would actually probably regulate it more, and it wouldn't be overused the way it is.
What I wanted to ask you, Rico, about do you use AI in any part of your practice? And when one of the things about AI that I understand is that one of the eventually, God knows what where it's going to go. But like right now, it's good for like looking at pictures and saying, oh, here's a cancer, or here's a heart problem, or here's a this, or here's a that sometimes humans can't pick up. Are you involved with any kind of AI? Or you just send your stuff out to any kind of AI? What's going on with it? What's your take on AI and where we are and where we're headed and technology and that kind of stuff?
I think we're at this is like a new frontier. A lot of hospitals, including Cedars Sinai, UCLA, all around the country, are incorporating AI in both detecting, diagnosing, and predicting disease. And I think that's going to be revolutionary because it's basically utilizing all the information we have, everything we know about patients, all the tests to kind of help us and guide us for doing the right test and looking and identifying people at risk. It's always about identifying people at risk, right? It's like we want to throw a net out, and you want to be able to find people who otherwise didn't know they had something, or have a better way to predict how something's going to work, or AI could even go so far as looking at what medications might work, or what medications may work with certain populations, certain demographics. May even get into like behavior, how to look at patients' practices, who's compliant, who's more likely to take a pill versus not take a pill.
What about identifying rare diseases? Do you think it has a...
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one too. I mean, because it's funny because I always consider myself as a practitioner. I'm like Columbo. I'm like sitting there thinking one more thing, and that was my AI. My going through a list of all the rare, strange things. Whenever I hear a symptom, that's maybe because of part of my training. I had a teacher years ago said, okay, if you hear hoofs, it's probably a horse, but it might be a zebra, but never forget the rhinoceros. And the thing is, the day you forget the rhinoceros, it comes through, it wrecks the joint. So every time somebody presents with a symptom, I always think about some bizarre, weird thing it could be, and then work backwards from that. And I always find myself diagnosing like unusual things that most cardiologists don't do because I guess people get so specialized they forget that they're an internist, and now AI kind of helps everyone be that way, and even improves the bizarre things I could think of, even more things out there, so I think this is great. It's going to use the right way. It's going to help. Now, on the flip side, there's patients using AI, so I'll have patients.
Patients using AI in what way? I mean, just information?
Information about symptoms or what they're taking,
that started with Google, right? Isn't that what people come in and tell you?
So AI has replaced Google.
It has, yeah.
You don't need Google.
It's sort of like
AI.
Google on steroids. It's like search on steroids in a way.
So it's like ChatGPT. Exactly. So I've had patients say to me, "Hey, I was asking ChatGPT about using dual platelet therapy and platelets and aspirin, and I found that there's a high bleeding risk and this and then I got to turn around and say, yeah, but see now your mom is 85 years old with all these things, and the studies you're talking about only like maybe 30 people are 85 years old now, so the study doesn't apply to your particular mom. So you have to so actually the AI, if I was going to use it, I would say, okay, why don't you tell us the outcome of a use of a drug in a person this age with this condition? And that's where AI becomes great because when you think about it, it's really the subsets of these studies that kind of are like the outliers, and we could actually make our treatment more specific and demographics. Because one thing I learned, and I'm glad this is catching up, so one of my fellowships I did was in clinical pharmacology. So I basically learned that everyone's metabolism is different. So if you're from China, you metabolize an aspirin differently than if you were from Germany, or if you're from Michigan. Yeah, because we all have these enzymes that we inherit, right? So the enzymes that metabolize drug, it's almost like a fingerprint. We all have a unique set of enzymes,
Cool.
And so therefore, certain people, the same way certain people take one drink and they're blotto, and other people have like 10, and they're like sitting there like, wait, what's up? You know, it's like, it's the same thing with medications. So when we give people medications, we have to acknowledge who we're giving it to and what dose. The same way, I mean, it started out at least 30 years ago. We figured it out 25 years ago with men and women. You can't, because years ago, all the studies we used to do were VA studies, Veterans Affairs studies. So that means that the people who were studied were middle-aged men from like Michigan and Minnesota and West Virginia.
World War II.
There you go. Yeah. And so white men too. So now we're going to extrapolate data in white middle-aged men from the Midwest to like the world. You can't do that. I mean, like a Korean woman is going to respond to a drug the same way as some guy from Michigan does. I don't think so. No, especially not during the Wolverine games. No. But so that's the thing. So now we're finally learning. Hey, you know what? We dose medications differently. And the other thing the AI is going to do finally, which I've been screaming about this. And it's funny because I guess no one figured out a way to make money out of it, figure out a way to make it easy, so easy anyone could use it. It's very easy. If you could actually, the way you could do a 23andMe and figure out, where you're from and all these things about you, you can actually figure out which enzymes you have in your body and how you metabolize drugs and which combination of drugs may actually cause more side effects than other people.
Really?
So it's having your own signature of how you handle medicines. Wouldn't that be great to have like an app or have an AI say, hey, listen, by the way, you have these 12 genes that metabolize these drugs in a unique way. So if somebody gives you aspirin, make sure they don't give you aspirin with this and this, because certain combinations could be dangerous for you as opposed to somebody else. And having that knowledge is going to help a practitioner prescribe blood pressure medicines, blood thinners, aspirins. So all these drugs that we say, oh my God, this drug gave me a side effect. Yeah, because your doctor probably loads you up at the same dose in this, in a 120-pound woman that he gives to this 300-pound guy, because the study says 80 of Lipitor for everybody, but it's not for everybody. So eventually we're gonna have tailored medicine
and fine-tuned
exactly to people's genetics, their metabolism, and hopefully we'll have less side effects, because still, I think the last time I checked, there's about 10-20 million people a year are admitted to the hospital annually for medication side effects.
Medication side effects.
Yeah, because they're on too many or not enough, or most commonly like blood thinners, like people bleeding from too much blood thinners, or having a stroke from not being on enough, or having a side effect from seizure.
Or maybe being on drugs they were once prescribed and really don't need anymore.
That too, yes.
I found that condition in myself at one point. Yeah. I've been prescribed a couple of drugs, and then when we checked, I didn't really need them anymore. So
I think AI is going to be kind of like could monitor that, and almost like, say, hey, are you sure you want to prescribe Mr. So-and-so this drug because he's on this ABCD and this may cause this? We need that because there's there's an encyclopedic knowledge out there, information that people don't always keep track of,
Well, and that AI can command in a fraction of a second.
Exactly. So
access.
Yes.
Possible linkages that might take, a person considerable research to discern.
Correct.
AI could probably finger point, if you're using it correctly, could finger point in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and also it's not. I imagine, because there's always egos involved, right? But most people can handle AI telling them in the privacy of their phone that they're screwing up, as opposed to having some colleague say, "You sure you want to do that?" I mean, so that's
how far away are we? Do you think from a doctor having to make a decision? AI is telling him to do one thing, and his gut is telling him something else.
I think
and
it's
what
happening.
What are the whatever the moral, whatever you call it.
I think it's happening already. I think people are turning to, which is great. It's like, with me, I used to turn to PubMed, right, where you look up articles. You know?
Yeah.
And if an unusual case came in, I would type a couple of keywords and read like 10 articles about something and say, all right, and try to figure out. Oh, there you go. and try to figure out what's going on. And now you have AI that can literally incorporate that. Although you got to make sure the AI, you have to be very specific about what you ask the AI, because if you ask too general, you'll get this, the latest study, which
goulash.
is exactly. Well, because I always talk about this too. Like there's some really good journals where they have really good articles, like the real peer reviewed, where they're signed, and then there's the the People's Magazine kind of articles in medicine, which kind of say this stuff, which is more for the headlines. And you got to be careful when you see something like that you ask the AI, okay, what's that study about? Take a look at the results. How does that compare? And to really get real information, because you can, if you ask too topical a question, you may not get the right specific answer that you need. And that's why when the patients ask AI, they'll come up, hey, I read AI said that AI told me I shouldn't take my statin anymore because it's bad for me. And I go, well, based on what? And then they'll talk about some one article, and then you told them about the 30 other articles that talk about statins in other ways. So you got to make sure that whoever's,
you're asking the right prompts, probably,
exactly,
or getting the right
prompts. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting. Of course, the other thing is, we have so many people who don't have access to healthcare.
Yes.
And that's a crime. And so maybe this could be a way to get people access to healthcare, because part of it's diagnosing, like finding people with high blood pressure, finding people with diabetes. That's going to help prevent disease down the road. That's going to save a lot of, risky pregnancies, or save a lot of, strokes and heart attacks. And these are all the things that we want to do. And then we want to let AI and this information be able to reach out and empower clinics, or maybe even set up clinics where you can go for screening. How great would that be? Have a screening place that could speak in different languages, and then check your blood pressure, check your blood sugar, and let somebody know they have a problem, and then try to get them into a system where we can go out and maybe treat them. So there's a lot of great possibilities, out there.
What, Rico, can you talk to me? Well, first of all, I just want to mention COVID, because nobody said anything about it for the last 3 years. like it went from 0 to 100, and then it went back down to 0 again. And I know that you had your own. I don't know whether you want to talk about it or not, but you had your own situation with COVID, and I want to know how does it go from? How come nobody ever mentions it? You never hear about it anymore. And as a doctor, you see patients with COVID. Is it like the flu? Is it like they said it was going to be? Are people dying from COVID, or in a lesser? Please talk to me about what happened to you, and how come nobody ever even mentions it anymore? They don't even mention it as much as they do the flu.
Right. Well, I mean, some people think COVID went the way of Tower Video. It was hot for a while, and then boom, just vanished. And except Netflix didn't try to buy it. But that's talk about bad decisions. Netflix wanted to buy Tower Video. I was like, no, I'm not selling this. It's gonna be great. Ooh.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Things that make maybe Columbus. But with COVID, people still get COVID, and COVID could still be life threatening, and COVID is still a risk. I mean, luckily, the nature of it is the virus mutates. And there were certain strains which were very lethal. Like COVID-19 was a lethal one, but the coronavirus has been around for ages, and it just mutates. And sometimes it mutates where it's just particular to a certain species. It's not human, and sometimes it mutates where it's deadly, like COVID-19. And now it's mutated to something where people still get it. And luckily, because people are getting vaccinated, people are getting being more aware, and now we have drugs to treat. That you're not seeing these these
mortality rates anywhere near what they used to be.
Exactly, and that's the nature of viruses. I mean, from time of the Spanish flu to different over the years.
Do you tell your patients to get a COVID test, to get a flu test? And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
The vaccine. Yeah.
vaccine,
Yeah. No, it's and pneumonia vaccines and shingles vaccines. I mean,
I want to ask you about shingles. And I heard something recently. It sounds pretty fucking horrible, and I've never. But it just does something like things growing on you. But I go into pharmacies now, and there's a flu, and there's a COVID vaccine, and there's the shingles vaccine.
Yeah.
And I'm, like 70 years old, and I don't know anything about it. But I a guy who always believes in vaccines, I'm just like, go ahead, shoot me up, And I heard there was some research that if you have shingles, it can affect your brain. And have you heard that? Affect like we're talking about Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff, like somehow affect your ability to, hold on to information as you grow older. Have you ever heard of that? Is that just something that I read online that is like, or is there anything that shingles does other than be shingles, which is bad enough?
I mean, shingles is basically the reactivation of the virus, of the varicella virus that gives people chickenpox. So if you had chickenpox as a kid, as a child, then it goes dormant in your spinal column. Okay, and
if you've had chickenpox as a kid, then can you still get shingles?
Yes, exactly.
That's where it would stem from.
Exactly. Those are people that are high risk, because basically that you get chickenpox. Which is funny, because when I was a kid, is what we did in my little Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn. If somebody had, and I had my 20, 30 cousins all living in the neighborhood. So if one of my cousins had chickenpox or had the mumps, then the other parents would take their kids and play with the kids who were sick, so they would get it too. So that's like the Italian way of getting vaccinated. Go get.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they would do, because they say, it's because of the chickenpox. Then your kids get it, then they're safe from it, then they're done with it when they're young. And not thinking the long term. Like with chickenpox, you can get shingles one day, or with mumps, although it's rare, there's a chance you can get mumps or orchitis, which means you can go sterile.
Yeah.
So,
especially if you're older and get mumps.
Right. So they figured get out of the way as a kid rather than get a vaccine. So that's which is because back then it was like, well, vaccine, oh boy, you got to go to this place to give you a shot. And But so the chickenpox virus goes dormant when it goes away. Okay, so basically, and that could be dormant for years until you get older and your immune system changes a little bit, and then it could actually migrate along the nerves to the skin, and you get this outbreak of this rash. Now can that varicella go into the brain? There's cases of that. Where you see.
I see.
You see that, yeah.
Okay.
So you want to get that vaccine, because the last
what does the vaccine do to thwart that reactivation?
Well, it's an antibody, so it prevents the virus from activating and replicating, so you don't get the outbreak, and because the outbreaks are painful and they could last for a long time, depending on the manifestation. I've seen people have shingles for like weeks and weeks. And there's nothing.
It can be terrible. I've seen
it can be terrible, but is it always curable? I mean, with the right medicines and the right, therapy, or is it? Or usually.
Usually, but it could take time. I mean, I've seen cases of shingles, where they've been affected for weeks and weeks, and they're taking the antivirals, they're taking Valtrex and all that, and they're still affected. So there is a manifestation where you could have a long-term shingles, and that's just painful, So you want to avoid all that, pass on that, and then just get the Shingrix vaccine.
Okay. Well, speaking of the vaccine, and speaking of that vaccine, next time I go to a pharmacy, I'll just have them jab me 3 times. So,
one of the interesting things to me about that vaccine is that when you see an ad for it, one of the possible side effects is Guillain-Barré syndrome,
right?
Which is a really wicked thing to have to go through, because I had a bad case of it about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it didn't come from a vaccine, it came from food poisoning. But whenever I hear, possible side effect of something being Guillain-Barré syndrome, I think, gosh, I don't wish that on anybody, for sure.
I agree. And the thing about Guillain-Barré, I think more research has to be done. I mean, they're doing more research, but to me, I think maybe AI could help with this to identify who's at risk for Guillain-Barré, because Guillain-Barré is basically it's a autoimmune reaction.
Yeah. And when you read about Guillain-Barré, you run into the phrase, it is not known yet, or it is not known what causes it. It's not known why, really why the treatment that you're given, infusions of immunoglobulin will tend to thwart it. And there's so much about it that's not known.
And that's the thing, to try to identify what's the protein that you're making antibodies against, and what triggers it. Because I've had people say to me, well, I had the Guillain-Barré when I was young, and I was told never, ever get a vaccine again in my life. And I say, well, I don't know if that's
well, they did stop a vaccine in the 70s, I believe, that swine flu vaccine, when they had some Guillain-Barré cases pop up in Pennsylvania. But I mean, it's a very rare ailment. I don't think more than 5,000 people a year will come by it. So and vaccines don't account for the biggest part of it at all.
And there are people that get Guillain-Barré from being in the ICU. If you're in the intensive care unit,
that's true.
For prolonged periods, if you're on mechanical ventilation, for
some kind of stress I got it from a digestive infection, and sometimes respiratory tract infections can cause it, but it's a strange thing when it occurs, that's for sure.
So there was a case. So one of my friends in show business, I would get these random phone calls. Doc, you got to go see this person. And I go, what's wrong? Well, it's our buddy's assistant, and she's in her 20s, and she's at some hospital downtown, and she had this pneumonia, and now she's paralyzed, and she can't speak, and she can't move her arms, and we don't know what's going on. You got to get her to Cedars. You got to figure out what's wrong, and just you got to do it. And I get these these distress calls, so I get her brought over. It's got nothing to do with cardiology, but I bring her over. So I call neurology, infectious disease, and and there's different diagnoses being bandied about, including Guillain-Barré. And at one point, they're like, well, if it's Guillain-Barré, it's got to ride its course, and she was literally posturing. She was like, her arms were folding in, her legs were like curling up, and she couldn't speak. And they were talking about doing a trach and all this stuff. And so I was like doing my own AI with my Columbo, like everything kept bought. It didn't.
Where did I put my?
Exactly. Wait. One more thing. Wait. My wife. But so here's talk about Kismet. So at this time, I brought this patient over. I was studying for my board recertification. So every 10 years we got to retake our exams in internal medicine. So the way I study is, you have these courses on your phone, and you could listen to these tapes. So I would go hike 2-3 hours up in the woods and listen to these monotone tapes on different topics. And I remember that particular month I was reviewing neurology, and if you imagine making neurology, well, if you're a neurologist, sorry, but imagine making that sound interesting for 3 hours on listening while you're hiking. And there was a whole tape on autoimmune encephalopathies, and so I remember I go, I just had to listen to this painful tape for an hour and a half about autoimmune encephalopathies, and there's all these proteins they describe, a mu protein, and I'm telling this to the neurologist, looking at me like I have like 3 heads. He goes, "That's great that you listened to that tape, but we're pretty much sure this is Guillain-Barré, and it looks like Guillain-Barré." And then the infectious disease guy, he was great. He said, what? Why not? He goes, yeah, that could be it. What? We should treat her for we should do a spinal tap and get proteins and treat her for like meningitis. What could harm it? What's the harm of that? And then I said, yeah, but to do this, if she really has an autoimmune encephalitis, then she needs to have plasmapheresis or basically you take the blood and you filter out the antibodies, right?
Yeah.
And so this is like on a Friday, and I remember saying, I think we should just do it because she's literally like shrinking before and I don't think she could wait till Monday. So I called the plasmapheresis guy, and I'm like, hey, can you come in and do plasmapheresis? He goes, well, usually a neurologist has to approve that. I'm like, okay. So I called the head of neurology, and I got her on vacation somewhere back east in Rhode Island or a province or something. And I'm like, yeah, so this is Dr. Simonini. And she's like, yeah, I've heard of you. I'm like, oh, hopefully it was good. But I don't know. Maybe she saw one of my movies. I don't know. I got when some say I heard him, I got to always work in what context. I was like, no, I just played a funny guy, and I'm not really that guy. Anyway. But and I explained the case there. And she goes, yeah, that sounds very reasonable. So she actually authorized this plasmapheresis on this patient who was labeled as Guillain-Barré. They started on a Saturday, okay? By Monday, she was speaking. By Wednesday, she was moving. By Friday, she left the hospital, walked out of the hospital with just a limp. And it was this autoimmune condition. So Guillain-Barré became this, like, diagnosis that they threw because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So that's the other thing about Guillain-Barré. It's a lot of times it's they reach for that diagnosis because they can't explain why you can't move things.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a test that says, okay, this is the test.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah.
They did, for me, they did a cranial MRI and
Yeah.
a spinal tap. And then at around 1 o'clock in the morning, a neurologist said to me, you've got Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yeah, see, that's...
Imagine, she said, imagine terrorists have set off a bomb in your brain.
Wow.
We're going to send in a SEAL team to kill the terrorists, but there'll be some damage.
Oh, boy.
And I said to her, couldn't you come up with a different analogy?
Wow.
And that really, didn't describe the half of it, because I was basically quadriplegic for the next 3 months.
What did they give you, though? What did
they did the 5 days of immunoglobulin, IV immunoglobulin.
Okay, yeah. So at least, so that's the thing. I think a lot more needs to be understood, and neuroimmunologists, I really think they're geniuses, because they take the most obscure and they make it their day-to-day things that they look at every day. And I think that that's where we're going to find
it left me delusional and hallucinating for a good chunk of those 3 months too.
Goodness.
And that's what's fascinating to me, is how I could really believe the stuff that I believed at that point.
Wow.
I look back on it now, and how could I believe the rooms were tilting 90 degrees, or that people were cutting off parts of my body and eating it? But honest to God, believe that. Honest to God, believe that stuff.
Wow.
When I was experiencing that. It took about 3 months for it to kind of wear its course, and for me to be able to start therapy on any kind of a concerted basis and have it pay off. But they were lifting me in and out of bed with a Hoyer lift. It was I was quadriplegic. It was a nightmare.
I just wanted to get back to vaccinations for a moment, and I just wanted to ask you about Robert Kennedy. And I want, like how can somebody feel so strongly, and is he making changes now in some of the when you're 5 years old, every child I've had, when they're 2 or 3 or something, they get a shot, and they're good for like 5 things, And is he changing some of those things? And what's the whole thing with him and vaccine? And how fucking crazy is he, Rico? Or how bad for our country?
How much of his brain did that worm eat?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So
it's not. This is not Democrats, Republicans. This is just health care.
Right. So disclaimer, I was in a documentary that he's in that we do. It hasn't been released yet, and they brought me in the documentary to talk about pharmaceutical companies, So, and here's what I think he's doing. I mean, so there is this big, $1 trillion industry called the pharmaceutical industry, and my dad, growing up in Brooklyn, and my dad hung out with guys with pinky rings and Cadillacs who triple parked their cars and did what they wanted. The type, right?
Yeah,
the Goodfellas guys.
Exactly. And I used to say, hey, I'm going to med school because I want to do my own. I don't want to do this, or be in the I want to get away from this. Because my dad was like, he loved the fact I wanted to be a doctor, but his dream would be that I would open up an office in Brooklyn and get a new Cadillac every year and take care of his friends and maybe marry Victoria Gotti, and that would be like heaven for him, But and I said no. And he said to me, let me tell you something. He goes, the guys I hang out with, yeah, they do what they do, but they don't pretend that they're not what they are. And if they're your friends, they go to jail for you. They take a bullet for you. And if they don't like it, you just whack it. They don't pretend they like it, and that's that. They handshake means something. And if they steal thousands, maybe a million, maybe. If they hijack a truck full of the where you're going, you're going to deal with people who rob billions and kill thousands and wear suits. And that's the drug companies. And that's the real mafia.
Your dad said that to you.
That's
back then.
That's the real mafia in this country. Not my friends. Where you're going.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I kind of like don't turn my back on that. Now, flash ahead, and I'm working here. And when I first came to LA, I was the head of the heart failure program at Cedars Sinai, the youngest one in the country, or one of the youngest ones in the country. And every drug company wanted to meet with me, right? Because, hey, you have the power to prescribe our drug. And at the time, I was speaking for different companies, one of which was Merck. I can say that, it was true. And they would fly me to give lectures on heart failure. That was my expertise, right? And back then, I would make up the talk. I would make up the slides, with the science and the studies. And then they had a drug that was excellent for heart failure, and I would have maybe out of my 50 slides, 2 or 3 slides would be their drug, and the rest would be everybody else's drug. Because I was teaching the subject. I wasn't a poster boy for their product, And now things have changed, but that's how it used to be back then. And I give the talk, and I say, okay, now I got to pay for my trip. And I show their slide and talk about their drug, and they laugh, but it was fine. And at that time, they had asked me. 2 things happened. One, they were going to give a bunch of money to the hospital in my name because they wanted to create some kind of like foundation where
Sounds like a bribe.
Here we go. Where I would train their personnel, their scientific people about heart disease, and they were going to give money, and they wanted me to actually.
Who's they?
Merck.
Okay.
So they had a new arthritis drug coming out, and they wanted me to sign off on it, or kind of endorse it or say it was safe. And I was like, well, let me take a look. I was, hey, I'm glad to help, Mr. Young, naive guy. And I look at all the data and I start saying, hey, it's funny. I kind of looked at all this stuff and I noticed that even though there's all these studies that show safety, if you pull them together, there tends to be a signal showing that people are having strokes to take your drug versus the other group, the comparator group, and that created silence, and that created and then suddenly, they weren't happy about giving this money anymore, and I got static for that, and then years later the drug got released, and I wound up testifying against Merck in court. And I wound up, during discovery, got to see files and files and files. And you see what Big Pharma does. You see how they had this gerrymandering of data, how you kind of cherry pick your data, or you analyze certain subgroups. And I also learned this because, in the middle of all this, I was, I went from being a faculty guy to a private practice guy to figuring out what am I going to do with my life, and if I want to stay here, am I going to leave? I even interviewed to work at different drug companies. Maybe I could be a scientific person there, and still thinking, hey, I could use my brain to maybe create new drugs, because a lot of the stuff I was doing in my research lab were actually precursors of things which are actually used now in terms of how to work on inflammation and heart disease. And every interview I had with all these companies, here comes the sales pitch. Your job is to take a study that's a loss, has to seem like a tie. A tie has to seem like a win. You got to find a group where it's a win. And a win has to be a game changer. And I said, well, am I a doctor and scientist, or am I a salesman? Yeah, and you're a salesman. And because the average drug, costs billions to develop. So from the time someone has this idea, like an apple hits him in the head, ding, and he goes, oh yeah, here's this molecule he sees, and it's or she sees or they see, and it goes from that to being a drug. You only have a patent life of like maybe 15 years. I mean, it may have changed, whatever. Yeah. But it means you have 15 years to develop the drug, test it, make sure it's safe, test it in animals, test it in normal people, and then do a clinical trial, and then get it approved. And then by the time that stage happens, unless it's like like an emergency situation, like with HIV or with the pandemic, that could take 7 to 10 years, 11 years to do all that. So you only have 4 or 5 years left to make your money back. So you're trying to make up those billions in 5 years. So if a drug is a failure, you just spend billions of dollars for nothing. So there's huge pressure in that drug being successful, and there's huge pressure, and if it's not successful, to find some potential use, and so I could tell you there's drugs out there that were failures. They say, you know what? But in this small group of people who have severe disease and maybe a year left to live, it could provide some relief. So they market it to those people so they can make some of that money back.
Well, that's last time you were here. You talked about that's how Viagra got started.
Well,
right?
I was there. I was the Forrest Gump for making this. The people having erections that don't want to give up the drug. I mean that was me. I was there for that. So that's the thing with the drug companies. So here, Merck developed this anti-inflammatory drug called Vioxx, and they spent so much money developing it, and I was the one that was testifying, in court. And against Merck about the drug causing harm and
who is fighting the other side? Who's prosecuting them? Who are you testifying for? The state, the country?
So there were various plaintiffs were suing Merck. The first guy was a guy in Texas who died a month after using the drug, and of course Merck had they have some of the best law firms defending them.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they had was this big law firm from D.C. defending them, and I remember, it's talk about courtroom drama. Like I'm sitting there. Oh, gee, this was kind of a funny moment for me. I enjoyed this one. When they had to depose me, right? They sent. Not the main lawyer, the secondary lawyer, this heavyset guy from Texas, not the main guy from DC. And I remember it was like 12 people around this conference table on that side, and there I was with the lawyer who hired me on this side, this guy Mauro Ruiz, is a Mexican-American lawyer from Texas. And I remember telling Mauro, I go, these guys, it was like a 14-hour deposition, asking me questions after questions, showing me articles and trying to get me to contradict myself. Yeah. Or showing me an article and reading the first paragraph. Don't you agree with this paragraph? And don't you agree it's a good journal? I go, yeah, but why don't you look at paragraph 5? Because it totally says the opposite. You can't. You're just picking sentences out of the article the way Merck picks data out of their study. I was totally hitting them back. And at one point, I said to this guy, and I don't know if this had anything to do with it. I said to Mauro, at some point in this deposition, I'm going to pretend to lose it. I want them to think they could shake me, because this way in trial, they're going to try to do the same exact thing, and I'm going to get them. And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, this is strategy. Don't worry about it. And so this is where my acting skills came in. So at one point, they're asking me questions, and I got very, I can't, what? You guys, and I got up and stormed out of the room. And the guy goes, and he comes running. I goes, Rico, what are you doing? I go, dude, what did I tell you? Oh my God, that was great. I thought you were. I go, okay, now bring me back in there, and we'll sit down. And so basically, in trial.
So this went to trial.
Went to trial.
Yeah.
I'm in Texas, and at that same point in the question, that guy thought he was going to get me, and I calmly blasted him, and the guy was like, oh, And the one thing he did was really funny. He, it was just me. I'm like this young doctor, scientist, and so he shows. So he has our resumes, or we call them curriculum vitae, CVs, right? So he pulls out my CV, and it's only maybe 20 pages, 25 pages. He puts it on the table, goes, now this is you saying that this drug is not safe. then he takes out the resumes of all these like scientists, and they're all like 1,000 pages, and he stacks it's like this huge stack. He goes, now this are all the people that advise Merck and say that this drug is safe, and there's you telling all these people are wrong. Now why should this jury believe you when you got all this on this side? And I sat there and calmly said, well, when Merck was paying me $1,000 an hour to advise for them, they seemed to think I must have known something. And all of a sudden, it's like, when did they pay you at that? Well, I go, didn't you do your homework? And all of a sudden, and that was like, boom, I destroyed that. And because when he brought that up in the deposition, I freaked out.
Yes.
I didn't respond.
Yes.
And so anyway, but then the next case I testified had the main guy there, and he was really, really good. I mean, we sparred. Main lawyer. We sparred. And it was funny because then when the case eventually it settled and Merck, the drug got pulled, Merck paid like billions of dollars to the people, to the victims. And
would that have happened without you?
Well, it's hard to say. But in one of the circuit courts, they cited me as showing causation. Dr. Simonini proved causation. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was funny because their strategy was, because when you're fighting a case or defending a case like this, I always thought, by the way, this would be a great idea for a TV show, like these lawyers who defend these guys, because they're kind of sharp and slick, and they figure out ways to like. Bend, I mean, really sharp, these guys.
They're worth their money. That's why they get a couple thousand an hour.
Exactly. But you have two choices. Either you have to fight what they're saying and say, okay, contradict their testimony and prove they're wrong. But my science was good. My science was bulletproof. I mean, I know, So the lawyer can't out-science me. So then the other thing you could do is try to attack who I am.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there have been various experts that they actually nullified by implicating them with trading in the stock market. And then they wound up getting fired from their hospital because they exposed this thing about their personal life and all this stuff. With me, it was funny. They tried twice to come after me for my personal life. And one time, it was great. One time I'm in court, I think I was in LA, I think it was, right? Yeah. And this guy shows my IMDb page, my acting, right? Yeah. And he goes, isn't it true that you're also an actor? I go, yeah, I am. And he shows my IMDb page, and he starts showing like the different movies I was in. And look, there's even a role where your character's called Asshole Lawyer. I go, well,
if the shoe fits.
I go, there's a lot of that going around. I said, and then he said to me, and isn't it true that acting is being paid to lie? Isn't that what you're doing as an actor? You're being paid to lie. Isn't that what you do as an actor? Isn't that what you're doing right now? I said, well, obviously you know nothing about acting. Because the definition of acting is being truthful in imaginary circumstances.
Oh, wow.
And all the actors that we like and that we connect to, the Meryl Streeps, we love them because they're being honest and truthful, and we connect to them. And that's what acting is, being open and honest in the moment. It's not lying at all. It's not acting.
I've heard that argument made against, so many celebrities and sports figures and so on and so forth, that that argument. Let me. I just wanted to get back and we went off a little bit.
I bring it up. I bring it up because Robert Kennedy is basically, he started out by attacking Big Pharma.
Okay.
And I think that this is a tangential way of answering that question. He attacked Big Pharma, and the byproduct is, okay, so Big Pharma now wants us to do this, and this vaccine schedule and that vaccine schedule. And are there some vaccine schedules that seem a little aggressive? I'd say probably, but then when it came to the pandemic, were some vaccines released quickly before being fully tested? Probably. But there was an emergency. People were dying, so you had a choice: either use a vaccine that's less than perfect, or use nothing and have people die. So, and I'm sure people are going to disagree with that, saying it was an experimental drug and this and that. But the thing is, we had to do something. We had people dying. It was spreading around the world, and no matter where it came from, if somebody released it, or if there was a red bag that got lost in China somewhere, whatever, it was happening, and it was killing people, and we had to do something. I mean, sure, was the first polio vaccine imperfect? Yes. The Salk vaccine, but it was preventing polio, and then eventually they had the killed virus vaccine, the Sabin vaccine. So it's the natural history of things. The first thing out of the gate isn't always perfect, but it does something, until we figure out what to do next, and that's. And that's the way it is.
Did you see any links in any of the corona vaccines and possible side effects? Wasn't myocardia supposedly one side effect?
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, COVID can cause a myocarditis, and yes, there is a described myocarditis that can come from the vaccine, or a pericarditis that can come from the vaccine, but those are rare. I mean, those are rare, And I guess the thing is this, like with every side effect, you have to think about the absolute number and the percentage number. So I mean, I use the example of statins, because statins, if you look at the literature over time, you'll have cholesterol is bad, cholesterol is good. Cholesterol it's cyclical. Every 20 years, it's going to be the same argument about cholesterol. I mean, I can show you, I can visualize in my semi-photographic memory whenever I put film in the camera. This Time magazine of a frying pan with 2 eggs sunny side up. And it says, and a frown with bacon, the myth of cholesterol, And
I remember that. Okay? I do remember that.
And telling people, Americans are being told cholesterol is no good. Meanwhile, it does all these great things for you. It does great things for you at certain levels, but when you start getting bad cholesterol oxidizing and causing inflammation and causing plaque and causing heart attacks and strokes, then it's not doing good things for you. So the thing is, if you prescribe 30 million people a certain drug, and the rate of a side effect is 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000. Well, 30 million times 1 in 1,000, 1 in 5,000, you're going to have thousands of people talking about a side effect. You're going to have them. So yeah, so they're going to be numbers, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't use it, because it's still, the odds are still 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 or 1. It's like
right.
How many times do you hit the slot machine? Do you hit the roulette table in Vegas? I mean, it's like. That's 36 to 1 or 37. You add the zeros, right? So that's, it's still small percentage. So everything's about percentages. Risk benefit. What's the risk of something? What's the benefit of something? If you go for surgery, bypass surgery, it could be anywhere from a 3 to 5% chance something bad happens. Do you not do bypass surgery because of that? I mean, you'd rather die of a heart. So it's all risk benefit. So I think Kennedy was looking at. Yeah, the evil of big pharma, and how big pharma, is trying to make profits.
Which is laudable.
It's very, and the thing is.
A good solid argument.
Yeah, it is a solid argument. And the sad thing is, here's a scary thing that's happening now, and is that once upon a time, all clinical trials, or most clinical trials, anyway, were conducted at academic institutions, where basically, I was a research fellow. I was, running around cooking up, giving vets IV Viagra, and I didn't get paid for the more people I saw. No, I was doing what I did. We were interested in the science, and it was all about the science. Now you have this thing where private equity people are financing clinical trials. And so the problem with that is that when you figure out a way to make profit off of a clinical trial, then the danger is, how you're going to interpret the data. Let's say you're doing a study, you're studying drug A or drug X or whatever, and the company will pay you, let's say $10,000 a month for every month the person stays in the study. And it's an 18, 20-month trial. And let's say a patient says to you, hey, doc, this thing you give me, I don't know what it is, if it's a real thing or a drug, but I'm throwing up, I feel sick, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm done. And now if you're getting paid $10,000 a month for this person to stay taking the drug, are you going to say, oh, don't worry about it, you're allowed to drop out? Or are you going to try to get that guy to stay in? And you have to, is there a temptation there or not? I don't know. You got to ask that question. When there's dollars involved, and now suddenly someone figures out a way to make money off science
trials.
It's always the danger of same thing about reporting data. Okay, if a venture capitalist is looking at your lab and looking at the research you're doing and figuring out what research is close to being something we can market and sell and put out there into the world, how the temptation of reporting your data differently, or maybe withholding bad data, or maybe or doing a do-over, like fudging. Oh, see, that didn't work. Let's do another one. Forget this one. This is out. We're just gonna call it an outlet. I mean, it's human temptation, human nature. I mean, people, it's like I remember like in physics lab in like high school. The people like. They would try to do these experiments, or organic chemistry lab. They mess up their reaction, and the reagent would come up wrong, and they were like, "Well, we'll just do it again and pretend this." You can't just do that in science, and when you're researching a drug. But the temptation is too great, And plus, if you don't report good data, then they're going to turn away from your molecule, your project, your idea. So, and there are projects. And ventures in science where there were no results that the person anticipated, but the journey led to so many other discoveries.
Serendipitous discovery.
So if you're making that all profit-oriented and result-oriented, then you may cut something short, or you may skew which way you're doing because, hey, this way looks more profitable than that way, as opposed to, let's keep pursuing this and that. And so you gotta wonder how that's going to change science, because not to be cynical, but human nature. It's like So I think that's what Kennedy was looking at about this, what's happening with big pharma and what and how how that affects healthcare and how that affects what's going on, and that's a reasonable thing to be worried about, And then of course he may have gone a little too way to one side with that, but that's
one thing that you're talking about is him working for Big Pharma, which I said, well, yeah, I mean that sounds like or against Big Pharma, or putting up like questions about it. But the whole thing I thought with him is the whole anti-vax.
Yeah, everything's wrong. All vaccines are wrong.
For years he argued that there was a certain additive to vaccines that was causing autism. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
like thimerosal or something like that.
Thimerosal, which has a mercury molecule, but but then there's no studies that really show that. I mean that, but
but that was part of his crusade almost for years, spreading this.
I know
it still is, isn't it, Rico? Well, do you know enough about him?
He still talks about that. He still talks about these. I mean that's the thing. It's easy to get people alarmed and upset and concerned and up it's easy. It's an easy, and someone like that knows how to reach to the audience and make people concerned and
make money off of it.
Well,
which he did to a considerable degree.
Yeah, there's that too, exactly. So you have to look at all the information.
How do you make money off of saying don't take vaccines?
He was getting a couple million a year from this children's health fund that he put together.
All right. We're getting.
However, getting into the weeds.
Getting into the weeds on that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something else, Rico. We have Rico Ross, who is in Aliens and is a friend of mine, and I've known him for a long time. And I ran into him recently. He's coming on the show. We got Rico and we got Rico. Rico's coming on next. He was in Aliens, and so
caused a bit of confusion in our text chain last week.
Was that? Yeah. It did cause a little bit of confusion in our chain. But he, he's an athlete. He's always prided himself in being a baller, and he's 6 feet. 6'2", and he can leap. And he recently, I'm getting the stem cell.
Okay.
I want to start to talk to you about stem cell because he came to me about 3 months ago.
It was at Comic-Con.
Yes.
Yeah, we were at Comic-Con. He was telling you about how he just went down to Mexico, right? And he'd done the stem cell on his knees.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when he first was telling you about it?
Yeah.
So it was a miracle.
Well, yeah. So he basically has got a problem with his knee, and I don't know what the problem is. I don't know. It seems to me as compared to being like a tear or something broken, it's just like old age.
Right.
But I don't know what it is, Rico. But so he approaches me. Hey, Rico, how you doing? Michael, I got to talk to you about stem cell. Oh my God, this is incredible. I was, I went down to Mexico. I was down there for that week, 10 days, and they did this and they did that, and and it kind of reminded me of the old HGH thing, where it's not only going to help his knee, it's going to help his skin, it's going to help his hair, it's going to help his libido, it's going to help, and I wanted to know from you, and I've had a basketball coach when I was in high school, and I talked to him many, many years later, and he'd had some stem cell stuff on one of his knees that really didn't work out very well. So talk to me about stem cells, and then I want to talk to you about growing body parts. We'll wrap it up on that.
Oh boy! Wow. Growing body parts. There you go.
I mean, isn't that something that we're looking at now? I mean,
yeah. Well, so let's try stem cells. I mean,
stem cells. First of all, is it legal in the United States?
You can give stem cells in the United States as long as you don't process them in any way. In other words, you can't take stem cells and grow them and then administer them. Okay, but you can give cells that have been harvested. You can do that.
This has to do with a pregnancy, and this has to do with an egg that's been fertilized. Is that is that the whole reason why we can't do it is because of the religious right? And
so there was that was like years ago.
Okay.
Like I remember, like years ago, stem cell research was suspended. Or you couldn't get federal funding for it because I think it was under George Bush II.
It was George W.
Yeah, George W., the guy who traded Sammy Sosa for prospects because, that's, hey, who knew? Who knew?
Yeah, really. It was a good idea at the time.
Good idea at the time. Hey, the Mets traded Nolan Ryan, but hey. These things happen in baseball.
What do you know?
But no, so for a while, stem cell research, there was none, and I remember there were some stem cell centers trying to look at that. Now, see, stem cells offer like this promise, but it's also part of it's like Ponce de Leon, like searching for the fountain of youth, and a lot of sometimes good things happen when you search for the fountain of youth. Like he discovered Florida, so where would we retire to if it wasn't for the fountain of youth, right? There'd be no Florida. There'd be like running around. There'd be Cuba or something else, right? So we found Florida, and shopping malls and all that, and no state tax and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, though, it's sometimes you're buying into the dream too much. Now, the thing about stem cells, it's where they come from. Obviously you want embryonic stem cells that come from the placenta, or Wharton's jelly is another word you may read out there. But then there's something about stem cells and exosomes, which are these proteins which are produced thereof. And then what about down the line from those exosomes? So you have the cells, the messenger, and the proteins from the messenger. And they did it. Cedars had a major stem cell research, and they're finding that they're going down the line and how proteins are activated is what stem cell research taught them. So now they're focusing more on downstream things that happen as a result of stem cells. People with selling stem cells for cash, or people going to Mexico getting stem cells.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like a private industry, and I know as far as data on how there might be improvement, there's some orthopedic data on knees and joints may show some relief with stem cells, but the question is how many. It could be 1 million, could be 30 million, could be 100 million. And the numbers may mean something.
30 million what?
Cells.
Cells.
How many millions of cells you put into somebody?
Right. Okay.
Now, I myself, having had multiple knee surgeries, I actually went for a stem cell injection, okay, and the doctor convinced me, I'll give you a professional discount, blah, blah, blah. And I had 2 injections that didn't do squat for me, okay? So, matter of fact, it was worse. I had
okay.
So that was my personal experience.
Okay.
Other people will tell me that they went to Mexico or Colombia and they had a great experience when it came to joints. The idea of giving stem cells and having them systemically affect your body elsewhere, there's not very good data on that.
Okay.
So there's very little good clinical data. The danger is too with some of these things is that you have to think about what cell line they came from, and what proteins are coming, and you also hear things about potentially activating genes you don't want to activate. Mm-hmm. So let's say you got a stem cells from
like a cancer gene.
Yes. Let's say you have a stem cell from a placenta of a child that one day develops leukemia, and there's some kind of genetic variance,
predisposition or something.
Yeah. You can't say mutations politically incorrectly, but you have to say variance. It's a genetic variance. Okay. And now you have these stem cells which may contain that, and then and you may trigger something. So there's a lot that's not known, and the fact that people leaving the country to get it, that tells you it's not good data here, and the FDA is trying to.
It's the FDA that is stopping people from being able to practice in the United States.
They're trying to get after it because people are opening up these stem cell clinics and charging thousands and thousands of dollars, and
$35,000.
And they're promising the world. They're telling you could stay young, you could do this, you could do that, and there's not good. If you just look at randomized studies, there's not very good randomized studies, to substantiate all those claims. And there's a PRP injection just as good as a stem cell injection in your knee.
A what?
A platelet-rich plasma where you take activated platelets from your blood, which is what they use for, like, in the NBA for basketball players when you pull a muscle, or football players. Is it just as good, or is the whole idea of injecting something in the knee could it trigger, an inflammatory response or a healing response? Is it just that? So there's a lot that's not known, and the danger is when you're traveling around the world to collect stem cells, then you have no idea where the source is, the regulation, and you have to worry about what else is in there, because the other thing is, you actually can take stem cells and you could incubate them in a broth, which is like chicken soup. It's not really chicken soup, but some kind of broth, and they can grow. You could get you could take 1 million and make it like 100 million, but then you also who's regulating that broth and the conditions, or what else are you getting? So there's a lot of questions, and there's little regulation, and most of the information we have is from these stories. Someone coming back having had a good experience, and they went to this clinic in Mexico, or this clinic in Colombia, or they went to Texas, or they went to Denmark. So I think it's.
Texas is in the United States.
I know. Although let me tell you something.
I'm with you.
Colombia,
Mexico, Texas.
I keep thinking of was it in Dog Day Afternoon?
Dog Day. I just saw that was on over the weekend.
What country? Wyoming. That's not a country. That's not a country. No, let me.
Sal, that's not
Sal,
a country.
I'll take care of it, Sal.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Wyoming instead. But
one of the best lines in that movie.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So you have to be very cautious and have an open eye and look at what you're being sold. I even gone to these conventions. They have these conventions, stem cell conventions, and they're like usually smaller, and they're selling you stem cells, exosomes, and they're selling you youth. And I don't know, some of these guys who are lecturing about youth, they don't look that useful to me.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just say word of caution, because there's really not that much regulation, and just look and use your ChatGPT, randomized clinical trials looking at stem cells and exosomes, and see what pops up. And you're going to see there's not a whole lot of great data, outside of some orthopedic studies of injecting ligaments and tendons and all that, and that might maybe trigger the healing mechanism faster or accelerate healing, maybe. But I see people do all kinds of crazy stuff with stem cells now, and I just, and like I said, it's sadly a lot of people use it to exploit people and get lots of money out of it. And say, hey, we're giving you this, we're promising you this, and if you're older and you have arthritis, or you're in pain, or you're wrinkled, someone's selling you something. I mean, they'll pay, and that's you gotta be just be careful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Bud Frazier. Rico was my cardiologist, and can you explain very quickly, because like now that I've mentioned this on the podcast, people they take it as like a heart attack and stuff. Can you very quickly just explain when I came to you what my situation was, how long it took, sort of, and then when I got the surgery, what it was, and how easy that surgery was, sort of. Or I can do it, but I just thought
I thought we did that surgery in the garage with some power tools. we gave you like
hunting knife and
we gave you like a little bit of whiskey and a twig to chew on. Just bite on that. There we go. Yeah, but no. So you had a problem with your heart valve.
Since I was a kid.
Yeah. So something you were born with. And as you got older, the heart valve became more defective and leaking, and then the danger was that it could actually develop heart failure, and you need to have the heart valve replaced. And so we found you got it done in Texas.
Yes,
which is not another country. You're right. But
yes. Well, I was in been seeing you. When I first saw you, Rico, you did all the tests, and you said, like, yeah, Michael, this is what it is, but we're going to see if we can kick this can down the road for a while.
Exactly.
You might have given me some medications, or maybe not, but we did 2-3 years later, 4 years later, so something along the
exactly. We were monitoring it.
Yeah, you were monitoring it, and I was in Texas, and you called me.
That's right.
You said, Michael, I've just been looking at these tests, last bunch of tests, and listen, sooner or later you're probably gonna have to have the open heart surgery done, and not now. You don't have to this is not a rush job. This is not like a heart attack or anything, but just so you know. So what's your schedule like? And I said, well, I'm working right now. And you said, where are you working? I said, in Texas. And you said, Texas? Let me call you back. And so I thought, okay. So Rico calls me back, and he says, I want you, I've set up a consultation with a guy in Houston. It was Houston, right?
Yeah, Texas Heart. Yeah.
Guy by the name of Bud Frazier. Explain who Bud Frazier was.
So Bud Frazier.
This is who did my.
That's right. So
this is why I love Rico so much. This is why all his patients love him so much.
So Bud Frazier is kind of like the Mickey Mantle of heart surgery. Okay, he's a Texas Heart.
Well, you can operate with both hands.
And exactly. And he could steal a base in between.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. And so if you think about the pioneers of heart surgery, we think about DeBakey and Cooley. Well, Cooley was down there, but Cooley's like the Babe Ruth.
Barnard.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Cooley was a Texas, but Bud's like one of Cooley's proteges. So that's why I say Mickey Mantle, because he's like the generation, the younger generation. And he was in Texas. I go, you know what? I got the guy. I got not just the guy. I got the guy. And I called Bud and I said, listen, my friend's down there, and he needs a valve. And he goes, well, we'd be happy to take care of him for you. and there it was, a little sudden hospitality, and there it was. And but I tell you, Bud tried to recruit me to come down there, and they flew me down 3 times. To Houston to work at Texas Heart, and it was funny because then he heard, so he had found out that I liked theater, So he says to me, the 3rd time I went down, he goes, so what do you like to do in your spare time, there, doctor? And I'm like, well, I don't want to tell him too much about the theater stuff, that he might, freak out. well, you know, I like to exercise. Well, little bird told me you like doing theater now, don't you? I'm like, well, yeah. I go, well, you come down here, I'll build you theater, do what you want, you know. He was going to build me a theater there in Houston, in Medical Row. I could have had, like, you know, front seats. But, yeah, but I mean, he's a great guy. All those guys down there were great guys. There's a guy named Willerson, who was the editor of Circulation, which is one of the most prestigious magazines.
Well, Fraser was about as high on the totem pole
Yes.
down there as you got. And
Yeah.
he would do heart transplants and
Yes.
things like that at the
Yes.
same time as he was doing my little
Correct.
little deal.
Correct. So he was so he was like, that's why I said, you know what, you're there. The guy's there. Let's just get it done.
Greatest thing. I love telling people that I had work done by Bud Fraser.
I remember when I was down there for one of my interviews. That was funny because the third time I was there, the second time I was there, they had me stay at one of the doctor's houses. So and it was very, you know, Southern hospitality, and I remember like sleeping in his room and nice big old house.
Bud's house.
No, that was one of the other cardiologist houses, and they had these old school wooden Venetian blinds, you know, on the far wall. And I'm laying there, and I said, you know, there's like a shadow moving up the wall. What the heck is? And like I'm like, there's something moving. There's something on those blinds. It's kind of big. So I'm like, I hit the lights, and it's a tarantula. And I'm like, well, let's see. Am I going to be?
That's Houston.
And this is I said, am I going to be James Bond and Dr.
James,
No and like grab it and stomp it with my shoe? Or am I just going to? No, I'm just going to go to sleep and let him go on his way. And then
let it be. Yeah.
Let it be. And so next morning we're at breakfast and the doctor's wife fixed us a good old breakfast of, like, you know, biscuits and gravy, and I'm like, biscuits and gravy? That's not very hard smart. But anyway, so I'm sitting there, and I said, you know, last night I was sleeping and I saw something. Did you have a visitor? I'm like, I sure did. They go, well, that happens when the creek rises. I'm like, oh, great. Well, there you go. so I'm going to be moving to a place where when the creek rises, all kinds of critters come on out, you know. So I was like, well, maybe Houston's not, but it's a magnificent medical center. And wonderful people, and we're talking about, like you said, like, it's their top of the totem pole. I mean, so it's a great place to work. I guess the tarantula kind of
turned you off on it
a little bit.
Lastly, sort of lastly, are they all right? So they're doing heart transplants now. Are they doing other organ transplants now, and how many, and how long have they been doing it, and talk?
No, they've been doing hearts, livers, kidneys, pancreas, lungs. No, that's it. The problem is not whether they're doing it or not. The problem is the numbers, you know, because, you know, for you know, it's like they'll do 3,000 heart transplants a year in the country. But meanwhile, there's 1 million people who need a heart transplant. So
say that again.
They'll do about 3,000 heart transplants in a year.
Okay.
But there's 1 million people in the country that need a heart transplant. So that means only 3,000 a year are getting it, and there's other people still waiting and being kept alive on medical therapy. And it's not even and sure, if you look at, like, people, you know, offering their hearts for donation, you know.
Yeah.
Although they always say never give your blood type to a stranger in Bulgaria, but that's another story. that's another movie. What blood type are you? B positive. Look over there. No, but the thing is, I think the last number they checked is like probably 70-80% is the donor. Like, people check off the donor box on their license, so people are donating their hearts and parts, so to speak. But the problem is they're not always suitable to be used.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously if you're going to put a heart in somebody, you know, it's not going to come from a 70-year-old guy who donates his organs. It has to be a certain age that the heart has to come from, and the person has to die in such a way where the heart is viable. So which means you have to have a situation where the brain is dead, we're not talking about politician brain dead. We're talking about physical brain dead. Otherwise, just go to Washington and say you're brain dead. You can take your heart. No, but the brain's dead and the heart's still alive, and that's a certain kind of death, a certain
like
kind
a
of
motorcycle accident.
motorcycle
is a typical car wreck, something
or a
like
gunshot wound sometimes.
Yeah.
And so then the heart has to be kept alive, and they can't be like on a ventilator for too long because your brain releases all these hormones when it dies that could damage the heart. So the problem is the timing, the window, and all that, and that's why the accessibility goes down. Now there's some really cool stuff that's been invented, because I remember the way you would store a heart, you literally put the heart in ice in a beer cooler, and you bring it over, and so
dry ice,
I remember that's the first time I met Mehmet Oz.
Really?
So basically I was at NYU, and I wanted to learn about heart. I was interested in cardiology, and I was on this transport to bring a heart uptown to Columbia, and the heart was going to go in Joe Torre's brother, and this is crazy because we're trying to get. We're trying to get the heart uptown, and there's traffic, and I'm like, why don't I just take the thing on the subway? You get up there quicker. And they go to the subway. What if somebody jumps you on the subway? Well, I'll just open up the cooler. Hey, man. Yo, man, you really want this stuff? Hey, do you want this? Come on. Anyway, so I remember going up there and meeting Mehmet Oz and seeing all these Yankees hanging out because they're all, all supporting. And remember, I was a Mets fan. I hated the Yankees. But he was the first time I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm meeting Joe Torre, and this went back when Darryl Strawberry played for the Yankees and Dwight Gooden played for the Yankees.
Those were the days.
And David Cohn played for the Yankees. It was like '96, and they were playing the Braves in the World Series, who I hated because they always beat the Mets. So I was like, you know what? This year I don't mind the Yankees winning the World Series. And that year, Joe Torre's brother got the heart transplant that I brought up in a beer cooler. And I got to meet Strawberry and David Cohn and Gooden.
Oh, cool.
And they won the World Series, so that was kind of like a magical year. But now they got these devices where you can actually, it looks like something out of like Airplane, where you have the heart plugged into where you can perfuse the heart, and the heart could last longer, so the heart could be transported longer distances because you're actually putting fluids and perfusing the heart and keeping it going. And it looks like a heart on a stick where it's actually beating in this thing, and it's kind of great. But there's a shortage of organs, so we're still doing transplant, but there's still a shortage of organs, and that's why people have to wait so long. And,
is there any the idea of creating an organ, is that completely like not even anything to talk about?
No. They're talking about scaffolding and trying to clone cells and clone organs, and they're working on that, and they're also working on what's called xenotransplant, meaning putting like a pig kidney or a pig heart and all that, and it hasn't had much success except in lawyers for some reason. But it's always the go-to joke, It's like you first you try cells, then rats, then lawyers, and then but anyway, and the thing, and there's some studies now with xenotransplants where they've actually, what they've done, this is kind of, if you can imagine this, they've taken brain dead patients on ventilators, and they've actually put pig organs in them. Obviously, you get permission of the family, and all that. And they're keeping them alive on a ventilator to see how the pig organs do in these bodies that they've been transplanted into, and trying to understand how the immune system works and what they can do to affect the immune system to not attack this foreign. Because the pig kidneys work great when they put them in there, but the problem is the immune system wants to attack them. So we're learning more about that, and there's work with scaffolding and trying to develop organs.
Scaffolding?
So basically, it's like there's a skeleton, they call it of connective tissue, where tissues grow. Like the heart has a skeleton.
Okay.
of connective tissue, and that's the same kind of stuff that your heart valves are made of, and some of the. And so they're working on growing things and like with small, like with mice and this and that. And Harvard's doing a lot of work with that. And
haven't they come up with a way to like donate part of your liver?
Well, that you could do. Yeah, that you can do. Yeah, you can give half your liver because
because you can always donate a kidney.
Correct.
But you can't donate a vital organ. But I guess you can donate part of your liver.
Well, you could donate a liver.
A lung, maybe?
I mean, you could you wouldn't donate a lung. You could donate half your liver or one of your kidneys. You can do, but lungs. Now lungs have to come from a cadaver, and usually, and how long they last. I mean, I know, I've seen heart transplant recipients. I saw one guy living 30 years. Another guy, I think the longest one's like 40. So yeah, you can have that, especially now with the immune suppressants, because that was
right.
Because I could also tell you in my semi-photograph mind, there's a cover of Life magazine talking about Christian Bernard, calling him a monster because the curse of the transplant, because the first patient he did was actually a dentist, which is interesting because the first artificial heart went to a dentist. So if you're a dentist, be careful. But maybe it's good payback. A dentist always cause pain. But anyway, it's another story. But no, so of his first few recipients of heart transplant, they died very quickly within 30 days because of rejection. And it wasn't until they discovered cyclosporin that they realized, hey, if you suppress the immune system, then the hearts could last longer. And now it's gotten better. We're better at immune suppressant. We're better at monitoring, because it used to be you have to go in there and do a biopsy where you stick you put a catheter in the heart and literally snip a piece of the heart and send it to the lab to see if there's any rejection. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I remember going in there, and you got this little wire with this little mouth thing, and this like a little alligator mouth, and you're literally putting it against the heart and snipping a piece and yanking it. And then you see the heart actually kind of tug while you're pulling it, and it's like barbaric. But that's the only way we had to do it. But now we could do these blood tests that actually could very well measure early signs of rejection. So we're getting better at monitoring. We're getting better at preventing rejection and following. It's just a question of numbers, because it's especially for the heart failure. It's like probably 7 million people have heart failure in the country, and when you're diagnosed with heart failure, you have a 50% chance of being dead in 5 years. So it's a pretty serious diagnosis. Yeah. So either you have to be on good medical therapy, which can reduce that to 14% if you really are on all the right drugs being followed, or you need a heart transplant. Once again, the heart transplant, it's a numbers game. We don't have enough
hearts.
Yeah, enough hearts.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the longest. This is the longest podcast I think that we've ever done. So I want to thank you, for spending your time and your expertise. And like, there's two people that I know that are like, I consider like, words are like, like way smart. Okay, you can say way smart. You can say a genius. You can say like all this kind of stuff. And
way smart works pretty well.
Well, here's the thing: is I was thinking when I was coming here, I was going to say, Rico, and introducing you and stuff, which I'm terrible at. But like Rico, he's like the smartest guy I know. I can just tell he's the smartest. Oh, Jim Cameron. Yeah, Jim Cameron. Jim Cameron's pretty smart too. But I think there's Jim Cameron, and as far as like the people that I'm exposed to, you're the smartest guy I know. So it's always like fun to talk to you, and we really haven't even gotten into a lot of your stories of growing up. And next time we're around, we'll try to talk a little bit less medicine, and you talk a little bit more about the wise guys and your dad and the betting and stuff like that, because it's always a lot of fun to hear your stories of growing up in New York. A little bit like Nick Vallelonga.
I love Nick.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. He's had a tough time of it. But thank you for taking time. You're a doctor, and so like I know how important it is for taking time to come here and spend this time, and I really appreciate it. And I can only thank you for being the type of doctor, and you're the only doctor that I've ever had that have just complete confidence in. Anything and everything that you say to me, I'm like, okay. I might not listen to you. I'm still taking a little bit too much Xanax, so I know, but I'm working on it. Okay. All right, but thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Michael, and very kind words, and
I mean it. It's not just me. I know. Well, first of all, and I'm not going to name any names, but you're like the cardiologist to the stars. There's just no doubt about that. I can't walk in your office without running into a movie star, a movie producer, there's just a writer, a famous this and a famous that, and
we just see the camera just roll.
But you're. When I swallowed the lollipop stick, for instance, you're at home, you were in Hollywood, you got in your car, it was nighttime, 10 o'clock at night, drove all the way out to the valley, tried to figure out what the fuck was going on, which nobody could figure out. You called a doctor who, I've forgotten his name now, but he's the one who ended up doing the surgery on me and pulling out the lollipop stick. And he was, as soon as I saw, there was another doctor, they wanted to do the operation on me, and I was like, he just wasn't giving me the time of day. And this guy came, your friend came, sat down with me, talked to me, and within like 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, this guy's great. I can tell this guy's great, And he'd gotten out of his pajamas because he was like, his wife had been out and he was at home too. Yeah. And so you're that type of doctor. And I know that you don't just do it because it's me, not like I'm any fucking thing, because I know who your clients are, but you do that for everybody, whether they're wealthy, whether they're famous, whether they're a street person. I just like you're that guy. So thank you for being that guy. Most of all, thank you for being my doctor, and thank you for coming in. And we'll have you back again soon because I want to hear more stories about you growing up and these guys. Okay.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
All right, bye.